Of course, you can follow all the races during this political season on our website, cspan.org/politics. We expect this hearing to start in just a moment. Iowa Senator Tom Harken is now in the room.
Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions will please come to order. I want to welcome everyone to this hearing on retirement security, what's happening to retirement in America today and in the future. This is an issue that is of critical importance to every American family. A recent survey found that 92% of adults aged 44 to 75 believe there is a retirement crisis in America. Are they right? Is there a retirement crisis? Let's consider the following statistics that we'll hear more about here at this hearing today. Over a quarter of workers do not have any meaningful retirement savings at all. None. 1 out of 4. Nearly half of the oldest baby boomers, who will turn 65 next year, are at risk of not having sufficient retirement resources to pay for basic retirement expenditures: food, fuel, housing, clothing, that type of thing, and uninsured health care costs. We learned from the testimony that we'll hear from the Employee Benefit Research Institute that the gap between what people need for retirement and what they actually have is estimated to be $6.6 trillion. Well, I think those numbers make it perfectly clear that the system is failing many Americans, and that the three-legged stool of retirement security, private pensions, personal savings, and Social Security, those three legs have gotten pretty wobbly. It used to be that many workers could rely on a defined benefit, a pension. Those plans are the best way to ensure that workers have a secure retirement because they provide a predictable, guaranteed source of income that workers can count on for the duration of their lives. But unfortunately, the traditional defined benefit pension is endangered. The number of employers offering these plans has fallen drastically over the past 3 decades. Now, less than 20% of workers in the private sector have the security of a defined benefit pension. The vast majority of employees with any retirement plan at all have a 401k, but those plans do not provide real retirement security. They leave workers exposed to the constant risk that the plan's investments will perform poorly. And we only have to look at what's happened in the last few years. Billions of dollars of retirement savings have just evaporated. Lots of people getting close to retirement saw any chance they had of retiring vanishing overnight. 401ks also do not necessarily provide workers with guaranteed lifetime incomes like the traditional defined benefit pension plans. That means that workers and their families are forced to bear the risk that they'll outlive their retirement savings. Plus, in these troubled economic times, families are facing unprecedented challenges, and saving for retirement is just not an option for many people. Wages have been stagnant for years. People are working harder and longer than ever before. They still cannot seem to meet the costs of basic everyday needs like education, transportation, and housing, let alone setting aside some money for their old age. So for many Americans, the only retirement security, the only solid retirement security they have is Social Security. But that too is under siege. There are those that want to privatize the system, cut back benefits, raise the retirement age. They say that everyone should just work longer, that somehow retirement is a luxury. Clearly, these people do not swing a hammer for a living, or string high power lines, or work in our cornfields, or oil rigs, or lay bricks, drive trucks. For Americans who work in these physically demanding jobs, working longer simply is not an option. A lifetime of hard work takes its toll, and at some point a person just can't do it anymore, and we'll hear about that at our hearing this morning. So we're facing a future where no one other than the rich will have the opportunity for a safe and secure retirement. People that work hard for their entire lives will find themselves teetering on the brink of poverty, unable to pay the basic costs of living. That's going to have drastic consequences for families and our country as a whole. So it's time for our nation to face the retirement crisis head-on. That's why, as the chairman of the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, I'm going to make retirement security a priority. Over the coming year, I plan to hold a series of hearings examining the crisis in retirement security from a number of different angles. And I look forward to working with my colleagues on comprehensive reforms to help workers save for retirement and ensure that they have a source of retirement income that they cannot outlive. Fortunately, retirement issues have always been an area where we've been able to reach across the aisle and work together, and I hope that we can continue to do that. So I thank you all for being here today to discuss this important issue, and I will yield to my good friend who has been heavily involved in this from his days in the House to here in the Senate. I'm going to count on Senator Sanders to be one of our lead persons in our hearings going into next year to examine all the aspects of retirement security. So with that, I would yield to my good friend, Senator Sanders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for stepping up to the plate and getting involved in an issue that is a concern to tens and tens of millions of Americans, but an issue we do not discuss enough. So I'm glad that we are going to jump into some hearings on this issue. I don't have to tell you, but all over this country, there is a feeling of deep anxiety. Something is happening in our country, and people are not quite sure what it is. What they do know is that in this great country of ours, the middle class today is disappearing. People know that. There may not be PhDs in economics, but they know that. They're worried that their kids are going to have a lower standard of living than they are, despite all of the increases in productivity we've seen in recent years. They understand that our manufacturing base, which has supplied so many good jobs for working people, has been eviscerated in recent years. They understand that median family income just during the 8 years of the Bush administration went down by over $2,000. Millions of people left the middle class, went into poverty. They understand that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. And they also understand something else very profoundly, and that is while the middle class is collapsing and poverty is increasing, virtually all of the income, new income created in recent years has gone to the people on top. So that today we have the top 1% earning 23.5% of all income in America. Top 1% earning more income than the bottom 50%. Top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%, and that disparity is growing wider, and it is the widest in the industrialized world. And in the midst of all of that, as you've just indicated, there are now attacks often from billionaire-type operators, Wall Street people, who are going after the one area where people have had security for the last 75 years. The truth of the matter is that Social Security has been the most successful federal program in our history. During all economic times, whether we were in prosperity or in severe recession, Social Security has paid out every nickel owed to every eligible American. Now, we take that for granted, but during the last Wall Street collapse, when people were losing their 401s, people were losing their pensions, not one American did not receive 100 cents on the dollar of what he or she was owed for Social Security benefits. That is a pretty good record. And while all of us must be concerned about the $13.4 trillion national debt that we have and the very large federal deficit, it is imperative that we be honest about the causes of that national debt. And I get a little bit tired of people saying, well, we've got to privatize Social Security. We have got to cut back on Social Security benefits. We've got to raise the retirement age because we have a $13 trillion national debt. Well, you know what? Social Security has not added one penny to the national debt. Quite the contrary. You want to know why we have a national debt? We are fighting two wars, which we forgot to fund. We've given hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 1%. No one worried about that. Medicare Part D, unfunded. Bailout of Wall Street, unfunded. Social Security has a $2.6 trillion surplus. Hasn't added a nickel to our national debt. So if there are people who, for ideological reasons, people who don't like government, people who want Wall Street, want workers to invest in Wall Street for their retirement programs, that's fine. That's a good ideological position, not mine. But let's get the facts right. And the facts are that Social Security is not responsible in any way for our deficit or our national debt. Let's also understand that according to the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, Social Security can pay out every nickel owed to every eligible American for the next 29 years. Now, we got a lot of problems in this country. We got 25% of our kids are on food stamps. We had an infrastructure which is collapsing. We got 2 wars. We got a national debt, worried about health care. We've got a lot of problems out there. But you know what? Social Security happens not to be one of the major ones. Is it an issue that we should address so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have the benefits they're entitled to? Yes. But for 29 years, every beneficiary in this country will get 100 cents on the dollar that they're owed. That's pretty good. So let's address it. I have some ideas. I think you have some ideas. But let us not go forward either in privatization. Let's not go forward in raising the retirement age to 70. As you've just indicated, a lot of these billionaire guys on Wall Street who think raising the retirement age to 70, they're not out laying bricks. They're not out plowing snow in Vermont at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're not out lifting patients in a nursing home. They're not out doing the physical labor. To ask American workers today to be working to the age of 68, 69, or 70 is reprehensible. It is not what this country is about. It is wrong. Not only is it wrong for those working people, force them to work to 70 before they get their benefits. You know what else it does? It tells the young people who want to get into the labor market, you can't get in because we've got old people doing the work. Meanwhile, unemployment for our young people is very, very high. So Social Security, the reason that there is so much opposition to Social Security from some of these billionaire guys is because Social Security has worked. It has done exactly what it is supposed to do, not only for the elderly, but for the disabled, for widows and orphans. And this senator is not going to allow some Wall Street people who have helped destroy this economy move toward privatization or raising the retirement age. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Senator Sanders. And we welcome back, we have 2 panels. Our first panel, we have Phyllis Borsey, Assistant Secretary for the Employee Benefits Security Administration at the Department of Labor, which oversees private sector retirement and health plans that provide benefits to approximately 150 million Americans. Previously, Ms. Borsey was a research professor in the Department of Health Policy at George Washington University and of counsel with the Washington, D.C. law firm of O'Donoghue and O'Donoghue, specializing in ERISA and other legal issues affecting employee benefit plans. Ms. Borsey will give us a sense of the problems facing the U.S. retirement system and the Department's regulatory initiatives aimed at improving retirement security. Ms. Borsey, welcome back. You've been before us before. Welcome back. Your statement will be made a part of the record in its entirety, and please proceed as you so desire. Well, I can't help but remark on that. We often talk about the middle class in America, and I think we've gotten a little confused as to who is the middle class in America. At $250,000 a year income, that's the top 2% income earners in America. 98% of the American people make less than $250,000 a year. At $150,000, that's 5%. In other words, 95% of the American people who are out there working make less than $150,000 a year. I think we've forgotten the people in the middle class are those that are making 35, 40, 45, 50, 60,000, 65,000. That's the bulk of where Americans are today. And we forget about that. And they are rightfully concerned about a lot of things, but I think the fairness, about what Senator Sanders just said, the fairness of this. If you're an American making $40,000 a year, you pay on Social Security, on your payroll tax, on every dollar you make. If you are a person making $400,000 a year, you only pay on Social Security on 25% of what you make.
Right.
1/4. Where's the fairness in that? So I can understand that the middle class in America is upset. I don't mean the people making $150,000 a year. I mean the people making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $35,000 a year. I can see why they're upset. So that's just, I didn't mean to get into that, but you brought it up, so there you go. It's just grossly unfair. But I have one other issue I just want to cover very briefly. As you know, the amount of money in IRAs dwarfs the amount of money in the 401k account.
Absolutely.
Because people frequently roll over their 401ks into an IRA when they leave a job or transfer.